Well met, lords and ladies, Jacob Butter speaking, and a warm welcome to this week's Walking Wednesday. You know, I had this all planned today. This was supposed to be the brightest Walking Wednesday that I had in some time. And, I was like, I've got up a lot earlier than I normally do. And, so I'm going to chill for a bit as I have made into a custom. And then afterwards, have some food. And then make my way out into the actual sun for a change. And then I got a phone call from a lady I've been speaking to about a job opportunity, or a job trial basically, for January. And today was the only day that they could actually do something because it was the last class of term. It's for, for some like after school club, Spanish thing. So instead of teaching English in Spain, I'm teaching Spanish here, or supposedly. My mission, should I choose to accept and all that. Even though I've already signed a contract with them because they had to insure me, but that's another subject for another day. So she was talking about that, basically, which I've been organising in the background. And as it turns out, I thought for some reason she said it was Thursday that it was happening, and no, it was Wednesday. So she needed me to print out the contract, get myself over to a town that is half an hour's drive away, and then... observe and be there and, make sure that that contract was sent and everything. And our printer didn't work, and it was a whole mess. Not to mention I was still trying to make sure that she'd seen the actual sending in when I needed to give my mum directions, because, she offered to drive me because she knows the area of that town more than I do. And in a pinch it made more sense. Even though it was my car, actually, the irony of that. But anyway, so, we were kind of scrambling around, basically. We made it, and then the actual event was pretty normal, actually, as far as what I understand these things to go, because, again, I had no prior experience of that. But, yeah, that was an interesting time. As it turns out, they have pre-prepared materials. So unlike in Galicia, where I was basically on my own to create my own subject matter without being told that was what I was going to be doing for the sessions I was hosting, for those, not the sessions, I'm thinking of D&D again. I'm excited for tomorrow. The lessons that I was in charge of. This time, there's an actual structure to it, which I imagine, from what I've seen from my very, very quick reading of the contract, I'm allowed to contribute my own stuff, but not divulge what they've been working on, or what their teaching materials are without their permission, or something along those lines, or how these things go. So yeah, worked out all those questions in advance, at least on that phone call, and kind of had to be on my way to some extent. That took up the daylight. And after that point, and after another half an hour of driving back, I basically had, just under an hour before I had to go to rehearsals. And normally I get something to eat before that happens. So instead, I just... By the way, side note here, there's a very big side road, basically. That's the national speed limit sign. Why is there a national speed limit sign right in the middle of this neighborhood? Don't get it. Anyway, these are the best decorations I've seen in a while. I know that people in the US don't think this is lavish, but over here, we're very, very lax on the light displays, so, nothing akin to Aaron's house in my street or anything. So this is significant. That is more what we're used to. So anyway, what was I saying? So after the session, after I came back, and then there was an intense rehearsal session, because I haven't been there for a week, because I wasn't called on Wednesday. I wasn't called on Friday. I was called on Sunday, but that's when we were away visiting family up in Liverpool. So, well, up in Formby, but close enough. So, I think we did go into Liverpool itself at one point to visit a different family member, but whatever. Point is, we were up there. We spent a couple of days, kind of like, touring around. We went to the beach, which is a thing we used to do all the time in Christmas whenever we visited those same family members when they lived in actual Liverpool. And we used to just drive to Formby to go to the beach. The very tempestuous, dreary beach that we are so used to here. But hey, Christmas traditions, am I right? So so we have fun with that. Yeah. So that's what we were doing beforehand. So that's what, from Sunday, and then we came back home on Tuesday. So that's that was an exploration. And on the day before Saturday, we were in London actually. So it's been a very, very busy time essentially. That's the best displays, that we've got here. The two houses that we saw earlier. 50 out of 100. Oh my goodness. Anyway, or 30 out of 100. Don't know why the score was that zane, but there you go. You do you. Yeah. So forgot that now. Yeah. So London, basically. That's where we were on Saturday, and that's because we had some other friends from Spain that were were visiting London in general, and they decided like, hey, you're relatively nearby. They know we're not in London now, unlike most of our friends in Spain seem to still think so. But he said, hey, can we organise a day? And we planned that like, way in advance. It was like a month earlier. Because when he said the 6th, I thought he meant the 6th of November, because it still hasn't passed yet. But they said, oh no, it's 6th of December. It's like, oh, okay, thank goodness. Gives me something. Gives us some time to, not just like impromptu scramble. Because like I said, for our Spanish friends, because given how long we've known them, we will, we'll drop, almost anything. It's kind of like even when I was like revising for GCSEs and A levels and stuff. If one of them called, that was it. I was allowed to spend the time with them. Keep that up. And now, of course, that's this part of the group that I travel with, around the world annually. So, well, not around the world, but to different parts of the world annually. Yeah. But yeah, this time, they were kind of on our home turf, and my dad, who has been to London many times, recommended that because they're a very historic-based family. The mother is a historian, so we decided, hey, let's take you to the Houses of Parliament. Not realizing until we were outside the door that I'd already been there. So then I started listing off things that happened last time I was there, before the tour guide even showed up, and because I'd actually been there 10 years ago with my secondary school. That's because we just had a field trip there, as one does. So I remembered quite a few things about that, but we still, the guy that who gave us the essential private tour, he works for one of the MPs there. I forget which one. So he was the expert, and we were quite surprised about this. Well, not I would say surprised. We didn't. Only Dad had met him before, But you know, it was surprising in general that he actually spoke really good Spanish. You know, we all agreed that, you know, his he was being very like careful and calculated about it. You know, the way that, like, you know, a foreigner would speak, you know, a language that they know relatively well, but like not to the degree that they're just like, you know, mouthing off the way that I do in Spanish, or the way that you know, any of us do, to be honest. Because I'll also say, you know, they because normally whenever like, you know, my mum particularly interacts with this one member of that, you know, with this one friend particularly, she would always speak to him in English, because I never spoke to him in English at all, because it felt weird. You know, it's one of those things that if it's kind of like how I say that you know, watching a show in a particular language for me means that I've got that association, so I will usually stick to just that version, just that dub, unless I get very, very morbidly curious about the different versions. Which, since I got Disney Plus, I've been having more often, because I can just easily check that back and forth. Very convenient. And speaking of Disney Plus, I do have something to say about them. So I guess I'll probably transition to that, because I need to get back. House of Lords, we had a lot of fun. Very historic, very educational. I remembered a lot more than I thought I did. And we saw a few new plaques that weren't there last time, because last time I was there, the Queen was alive. So there you go. Okay, so Disney Plus. I actually, you know, was just navigating around. You know, obviously Disney Plus, whenever you like log into it, it shows you, first of all, you know, things that are like, you know, the top like 5 things that are performing well there. Also new additions, basically. And in one of those, possibly both, I was very shocked to see that Shrek had been added. And not just Shrek, but Shrek 2, Shrek the Third, probably Shrek Forever After, I forget, I don't remember exactly. And some of like the extras or something. And I thought, wow, of all things I was not expecting to have here, because a lot of people think that Shrek is a Disney film because, you know, that's just kind of what you think with like animation like that. But Shrek, in a lot of ways, is the quintessential anti-Disney film. Because I don't know if people remember like how DreamWorks was founded, but to the best of my memory, Jeffrey Katzenberg used to work for Disney, was dissatisfied with the situation there, and decided to, much like Don Bluth had about like 30 years prior, went off and you know, teamed up with, I think it was Steven Spielberg and someone else, and made his own studio. Right around the same time that Disney had acquired Pixar. Oh, actually no, that was a little bit later. DreamWorks had a few 2D films first to compete directly with Disney Animation Studios, but then they both switched to, you know, Disney switched to just, you know, 3D. At some point it was like playing around with it, basically. Sorry, no, they didn't switch to only 3D until 2012, but yeah. They were experimenting with that, but Pixar was like their main selling point. So it became Pixar versus DreamWorks in a lot of respects. So a lot of the early DreamWorks films are responses to Pixar films. You know, like Finding Nemo, Shark Tale, for example. A Bug's Life and Ants, people suspect shared a production room of some kind, or whatever, or a few notes got passed around, you know. So a lot of speculation on that front. As far as Shrek goes, that's a very direct parallel, because unless you count Lion King to some degree, because with Lion King what happened was they you know, the animators that you know, that were getting the highest priority of work or something were sent to work on Lion King, and that ended up outperforming the priority film of Pocahontas. which performed way worse. So yeah, and the same thing happened with Shrek. They were not expecting it to be like such like a gigantic, one of the highest grossing films of all time. I think the Shrek 2 particularly was the highest grossing. But it was kind of like almost like a punishment to be sent to work on Shrek. But Shrek was kind of like, protesting against everything Disney by, subverting the classic fairy tale that Disney had come to be known for the past, nearly like 80 years by that point. And that's why you have so many like warped interpretations of, Pinocchio, Three Little Pigs, and, a bunch of like other stuff with the signature pop culture referencing of the time in general. So even just the idea of like the use of like licensed soundtracks rather than custom music or like making a full-on musical itself, that was already very anti-Disney, unless you count how Tarzan did they commissioned Phil Collins, I think, like just a year before, but like most of Disney kind of was like that, which was a shock. There was like a Seamus Gorman video a long time ago where it's going over the misconceptions that people had on Twitter, for example, of Shrek being a Disney film and like yelling at people and whatever. He had the same thing with Beauty and the Beast at one point, but that was obscure 1946 French film particularly, and how people saying that the original, referring to Disney, was not accurate, but that was more of a joke video, I think, to be honest. The film is real, but that's not what I mean. So yeah, basically back to that topic. So, and of course, Pixar owned by Disney, DreamWorks owned by Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers for the longest time have been like, honestly, some of like the fiercest rivals of Disney. Give or take Paramount, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and such, but in general, Warner Brothers are the ones that you think of most of all in terms of, going that anti-direction. Even back into, like the times like Merry Melodies and Looney Tunes and such. Like that, like, if anything, I think Doug Walker said this at one point, like, if Disney is classical music, then Looney Tunes is jazz, particularly, but like Warner Brothers in general, to some degree, they both like feed into like those niches, and like they obviously have absorbed a lot of different pieces of media that to a significant degree. Obviously, even like case in point, Harry Potter, for example, with Warner Brothers, because with Disney absorbing so many things, as much as I call Disney Plus convenient, I obviously I value the idea of not everything being owned by one single conglomerate for a multitude of reasons. But yeah, so for all those reasons, I got really worried when I saw Shrek appear almost in the entirety of the franchise on Disney Plus all of a sudden. It felt like what I imagine it must have felt like when people originally saw Sega video games made for Nintendo consoles. So for everyone who is slightly older than me who remembers this, that was, I'm thinking like the console wars around that time, how Nintendo and Sega were always at each other's throats. That's why Mario and Sonic have such like a history of rivalry, even though now it's very common to see them team up, because Nintendo basically won that battle in terms of console releases, and Sega have stuck to making games for those consoles ever since. So yeah, same issue applies. So I got really worried when I saw that. Turns out I was worried for the right reasons, but not necessarily with the right targets. And that's because I think like literally a day later, I found an article that was published, I think, by Netflix themselves, stating that Netflix has put an offer on the table to buy Warner Brothers. Now, you would think, given the ages of the companies, that it would be the other way around. You know, Warner Brothers would absorb Netflix, kind of like how they absorbed, you know, other newer companies like Rooster Teeth, for example, and then shut them down. But whatever. But no. As it turns out, I guess there has been something going on in Warner Brothers, and I think I talked to my uncle about this because again, this is like before we went to Liverpool, just about, and he told me that because he by the way has I'm pretty sure was like one of the first people that I actually knew to have a Netflix account. You know, like he has a DVD collection, you know, like a mile long, or like at least he used to back in his old house. But I don't know what happened to all of them now, to be honest. They're probably in storage somewhere. But yeah, like he has like a lot of like streaming services and libraries and all of that stuff nowadays. That also applies to video games. A lot of video game collections. Big fan of Tomb Raider. As one would have it. Anyway, so yeah, but the person who would know this kind of thing, it's him. So yeah, apparently there's another company that had an offer on directly to like the shareholders of Warner Brothers. So that may not end up going through if they accept that offer, because you know, the offer's a bit larger than the 2-point-something billion that Netflix offered to pay. But yeah, my goodness. I guess you could say Netflix and Disney Plus would have like the biggest rivalry, similar to like what MatPat kind of theorized a long time ago as far as streaming services go, and which ones had the biggest chance of succeeding out of the ones that were popular at the time. I believe the other one that he said was YouTube TV, because they basically just had all of YouTube videos on TV, which I will say, yes, is something that would be a hot commodity, but, you know, probably not for the same reasons as the other streaming services, so that one I would probably classify as separate. If Pluto TV, if that were more of a thing outside of Spain, it would probably make waves, to be honest, given their format of either having like episodes after each other, or a channel dedicated to airing just that one thing in like a simulated live form, but also with a couple of ad breaks in there to make it seem like TV from back in the day. But yeah. So I wonder about that. I don't know what to think really in terms of that, because I mean, obviously Warner Brothers isn't disappearing. I'm not sure what their rebranding, if any, would look like. I suppose if they just had like another like parent company, similar to how Paramount is a parent company for a lot of stuff, then maybe things would continue as normal. But as far as them leading the charge goes against Disney, maybe those I hope those days are not coming to an end, because they've been instrumental in that process for basically 100 years. So I guess we'll see going forward. You know, best of luck to them as far as keeping the idea of one of the opposite of a monopoly is alive. We'll see how it pans out. But for now, I've been singing a lot, I've been speaking a lot, and I got to stream after this, because it's been a while. So I've got to get back and do that. So please leave a like or dislike, because your opinion matters. And subscribe if you haven't done so already. And on that note, tune in tomorrow to the Butter Bunch for another occult episode, because I get to focus on just D&D tomorrow, and that's going to be a huge relief on my end, I think. But on that note, until next time, farewell.